Network.
Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Well, welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the After Stangs Show, Season 2 of our post-game show on the Pony Express YouTube channel. Welcome all of you guys in that are watching, and those of you who have also submitted questions on the message board. SMU just came off of a hard-fought 29-24 win at Reno, Nevada, where they were tasked with a fourth quarter comeback, and the Mustangs were able to pull it out. It was a game that, I mean, for 80% of it, SMU got out coached. They got out hustled. They were undisciplined, and they were on the ropes. And Nevada, credit to them, 27, 28-point underdogs were able to put it to SMU during most of the game. And there's a lot to unpack, and this is the first game of the season, and it's always the hardest thing to compare your preseason notes to then what you find out when the live bullets are flying at these guys, and then also caution against assuming everything is a trend, and that's how it's going to be, and that a team's going to suck or a team's going to be really good, and all of those things are what's facing SMU tonight and what's facing me in terms of talking about it. But before we get into all that, I want to announce that we are presented by our friends at Mosquito Shield. MosquitoShield.com is where you can go to start the process of getting your backyard taken care of. And Andrew Galloway, a former SMU punter, and his wife Caroline own and operate the business, and they can service Dallas and other Texas locations as well. You can reach out to them and call them 214-775-0622 or go to moshield.com. That's moshield.com. Use code PONYUP for the best pricing for the remainder of the season. That's through November. The weather's finally starting to cool down, and you want to be able to enjoy your yard with your family and friends, mosquito free. Trust me, I am just a complete sucker for them. Literally, they come after me all the time. My wife's pretty lucky; they stay away from her, but I need the help. And Mosquito Shield takes care of our backyard. We've got a pool, so that's another opportunity for those guys to just come in there and smell the blood in the water, so to speak, and attack us and all those things. So Mosquito Shield, they do a great job. You can do the all natural approach, or you can do the 95% plus all natural approach, and they'll tailor the treatments with you and your family, and work with you based on your entertaining needs as well. So that's really that attention to detail that you would expect from a former Mustang football player, and also a family owned and operated business. So we're so pumped to partner with Mosquito Shield on our After Stangs show this season. We'll still be broadcasting live from Shug's Bagels in Mockingbird Plaza as well after home games. So be sure to pick up a bagel from there after hours. But mosquitoshield.com. Go to moshield.com, first ad read, or give them a call, 214-775-0622. Code PONYUP to get their best pricing for the remainder of the season. All right, let's jump into this football game, and we have a ton of questions to get to on the message board, so we're going to work to try and get through all of them as best we can. This was a game that until the fourth quarter, SMU was going to be the biggest loser of week 0 of college football, and everybody on the message board and across college football Twitter or social media was assuming it was Florida State that was that big loser. And look, SMU did not play well. They were, quite frankly, unprepared to counteract anything that Nevada threw at them from a just hustle, from some of the good quarterback runs. But, you know, I was a little surprised by this. And I talked about it on our message board at ontheponyexpress.com. I felt like all offseason that the team that we saw SMU take to the AAC championship game and have a really good season and a historic one last year. You had so many players coming back from that. You had a intact coaching staff, and you had all this momentum, and everyone talked about the step up in competition with the ACC. Well, nobody talked about the step up that Nevada was going to bring to the table, at least publicly. And that's kind of how the media works, right? Like we're looking at the big picture of, wow, Nevada, 4-24 or something like that in their last 2 seasons. They have been a bad football team, but they have a new coaching staff. And one that I said on radio this week, I said on the message board that I think Jeff Choate's going to do a good job there, and he's going to turn that program around. And it looks like that early return on that bet might be a good one. But SMU, I felt like, was the more talented team, and there were times in this game where it just did not look like it, whether it be the offense looking out of sync, whether it would be the offensive line having some serious growing pains with their first action with that new look group, or the contain issues that I felt like Brendan Lewis, the quarterback for Nevada, exposed during the game. And there were also just undisciplined penalties. And look, I want to be very clear on Brandon Crosley's ejection when he was called for spitting in the face of another player. I'm not going to get into that and talk about it either way, because one, if you're like me and you're watching on TV, you didn't see it. You didn't see anything. I felt like they were going to go to the all 22 and you were going to see something so, damning of, Brandon spitting in the face of a player. And instead, what you ended up getting was a lot of Brandon being pretty adamant that he did not do anything. And as much trash as he talks, and he's the best trash talker on the field, they even cut to him a couple times, and he was saying, "No, I wouldn't do that." Teammates were coming up to him and kind of asking him about it because he was allowed to stay for a bit on the sideline, and he was saying, "No, I wouldn't do that." So I hope that there is a chance that with all the cameras SMU brings, or with the all 22, that something comes out where it's a little bit more definitive, rather than just something maybe the ref saw or heard or something, because there was a disagreement after that with Crosley, I think, and one of the players. So, but the overall discipline of SMU, you look at their final count on penalties that were accepted: 11 for 125 yards. Nevada, 11 for 82, not that great either. And they had some back-breaking ones as well. You look at the penalty that where the player lost his helmet, Chad Brown lost his helmet, and SMU got a fresh set of downs. Now, that was LJ Johnson getting stuffed on second down. SMU is still going to be third and goal from the one. But it obviously gave SMU a little bit more of a relaxed approach, and they were able to go out and execute and score that touchdown there. But I think offensively, I think we saw a lot of what plagued this team at times against, I mean, whether it be early in the season or against good competition in general. SMU was kind of just out of sync. I felt like the play calling was kind of choppy at times. And, we said when it really started to come up that there was a quarterback competition. And going into the game, we had heard that there was going to be a little bit of rotation. And Rhett Lashley said you were going to see both, but he didn't allude to the plan or anything like that. But when it was time for kickoff and the offense was sputtering early, and after the second drive, people were saying, "Oh, do you go to Preston?" I said, "No. The plan is that he's going to go to Kevin for the next two drives and then see where it goes." And that's kind of what Rhett Lashley said. Now, as the course of the game unfolded, if you were to ask me if SMU was going to go to Kevin those third and fourth drives, and then Kevin never see the field again, I would have told you that's not how I would feel about it. He led them to their only touchdown drive of the first three quarters, and then did not see the field. Obviously, in terms of the rotation, it was Preston had 2 more drives in the half, and then they ran out the clock on the last one, and then Rhett went to his starter, which he said Preston is a starter, to open the third quarter, and they get a field goal out of it on their first drive of the second half, and then they missed a field goal, and then scored a touchdown, and then punted, and then touchdown, and then they nailed it out. So Preston Stone really turned things around in the second half, because that first half for him was one to forget. I mean, there's no question about it. He just wasn't able to get the offense rolling in the right direction. He finished 17 of 30, which is 57% completion percentage, 254 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. That interception on his first throw of the game was quite poor. That's one that you've absolutely got to loft over the top. You've got to be able to let your receiver run under it. I felt like Keyshawn Smith, and this was kind of something that I think is kind of the book on Keyshawn at this point until he shows something a little different, is that, he could probably be a little bit more competitive on the ball. But Preston, nevertheless, intercepted. Next drive doesn't go well, and then you're kind of on your heels. And meanwhile, Nevada was playing with a lot of energy. They started out 3 straight punts. SMU's defense wasn't tired. You could tell that SMU had control defensively, even though Nevada was playing the long game of trying to milk the clock. And also there was a little bit of shakiness with some of the quarterback runs with Brendan Lewis. But then that's where SMU's offense didn't really hold up their end of the bargain. And then all of a sudden, Nevada's offense gets the ball first and goal at the 9, and SMU's defense isn't able to hold. And it's a touchdown. It's 7-0. And I think that really turned the game a little bit on its head, because SMU at that point was a very different football team defensively. And then when the offense wasn't necessarily clicking at times, they weren't really able to just get anything going. But I think one thing when I look at this defense is, and Rhett says this about tempo offense, right? Tempo is only good when you're moving the ball and you're getting first downs. And the same goes for the defense. SMU's defense is really, really strong, in my opinion, at least based off last season, based off the guys they have coming back this season, and the guys they added. But when your offense leaves you out on the field for, let's see, Nevada won the time of possession 36-23 over the course of the game. And when you look at the overall first half, it was 19 minutes, 36 seconds to 10:24. And then SMU was able to kind of, get back to a little bit better situation there, 16:41 to 13:19 in the second half. And you saw SMU's defense step up in the second half, 117 total yards allowed. The yards per play was 3.5 compared to 4.8 in the first half. They gave up 181 total yards in the first half. And I'll say this, that the last scoring drive for Nevada of the first half was one that they took, let's see, they took 3 minutes off the clock, I believe. Trying to read this the right way. Drives by team. Um, yeah, they took 357 off the clock there. And up until that drive, SMU had surrendered 100 yards of total offense to Nevada. Now, again, they only had to go 9 yards for one of their scoring drives. So you couple some other miscues by SMU, and that's where you're kind of gifted some situations where Nevada was able to take advantage of easy drives and make things happen. So the offense, once again, has to improve, but everybody has to improve after a game like tonight. This is not, I mean, this is a good wake up call for this team, because I felt like being out there pretty much every practice that I thought the defensive line was going to roll. I thought that was going to allow the corners to play pretty well. And there were moments, that they were able to. But at the same token, they had some really kind of bad plays on the ball. CJ Sanders was called for a hold. Smoke got beat on a touchdown. It's kind of a mismatch, but still back shoulder touchdown to cap one of the drives. And I felt like the alignment and the tackling at moments with Brendan Lewis was an adventure, because there were times where I was sitting there on the couch and was thinking, man, this is ripe for them lulling SMU to sleep and hitting that pop pass down the sideline that went for a big gain. That happened. Then you also had the quarterback run, and it just was kind of one of those things where it felt like they were just teeing SMU up the whole time, and there were bad angles being taken to make tackles. And I think that's something that, Scott Simons and his staff deserve enough leash with, in terms of cleaning up that game 1 to game 2. Obviously, the overall level of talent will go down with Houston Christian coming to the Hilltop to play that one, but they should clean that up. They should clean up the penalties against that team as well, because it will be a true mismatch of talent. And Nevada played so hard that it kind of eliminated the talent disparity. And so, uh, I mean, that this SMU team has to look itself in the mirror and learn a lot, go out and handle business against Houston Christian on next weekend in Ford Stadium. And then they've got to take everything they've learned in the first 2 weeks and say, okay, short week, BYU comes to town. We got to be ready to play. And it's hard to not look past Houston Christian, I'd imagine, when you're thinking about, oh man, Friday night game, we just, didn't play that well. The pressure's going to be on us again. That's the type of stuff that happens. But if this team is as mature as I thought they were preseason, this I'm not saying it's going to be peaches and beautiful the rest of the way, and they're just going to learn from this and get back on track. But they've got to take a huge lesson from this and recognize that, hey, you can't be arrogant, and you can't come in and think everything's going to be fine and you're just going to roll. And Jeff Cho, like, give him a lot of credit. He played the whole, oh gosh, I don't care what the score is. I just hope we play hard. But I mean, they knew they were going to play hard. And I think he teed his team up perfectly for this game. SMU, meanwhile, they've got to find some answers because this quarterback situation is very interesting. On one hand, Preston Stone did not play his best football at all the first three quarters, and really, I mean, I would say played much better in the second half, but still had his moments. But on the same token, he made some absolutely money throws to RJ Maryland, who 8 catches, 162 yards and a touchdown, had a long of 49. He was targeted 10 times early on in the game. They targeted him a couple times, and it kind of looked like, oh man, I don't know where this is going to go. It didn't look good, but he really put it together and became a true weapon in the second half. They found a way to get him involved. And then Brashard Smith was excellent. 11 carries, 67 yards. He had 2 catches for 26 yards as well. So nearly 100 yards of total offense from Brashard Smith, the Miami transfer, who also made an impact in the return game as well. SMU special teams was a little bit of a mixed bag as well. They had the veteran long snapper Will Benton sent one over Isaac Pearson's head. They gave up kind of a decent return, but they also were able to, get some friendly bounces, I guess, from Nevada's side of things. And then they were also able to get a 52-yard field goal from Colin Rogers, and then he also missed one. That was a little bit shorter than that. So, again, a mixed bag, but I liked the return game a lot. I thought that was excellent. That was a big change from last year's team to get that type of kickoff return yardage, a 48-yard return from Brashard Smith, 39 yards from Roderick Daniels. That is stuff that you don't count on at all, but they were able to get that. They did give up 2 punt returns for 31 yards, long of 22 on that, with Isaac Pearson punting. I didn't mind his punts. I thought the protection was pretty good. I think with his rugby style, he's got to be able to wait a little bit more, let his guys get downfield a little bit, and then get them to cover it. So obviously, his first game in college and in at SMU, so certainly a little bit of a change. But Colin Rogers finishes 2 of 3, 52-yarder, 43-yarder. He missed the 51-yarder in the fourth, but SMU was able to get back out there after that missed 51-yarder and get back to work, and they were able to get a touchdown on the next drive. They went 98 yards in 8 plays, and Preston Stone hit RJ Maryland, and Brashard Smith had a big hand in that. And then they get the ball back after a safety by Nevada, and I thought this one was interesting. This was a series that I didn't like at all. SMU wasn't able to get anything going. They ran LJ Johnson twice. I was kind of like, where's Brashard Smith? And then they got called for a holding, I think, and or a false start, and they went way backwards, and then just kind of checked it down and then punted the ball away. But they were able to kind of play a perfect game of clock management also, which down the stretch, I think Rhett Lashley deserves a lot of credit. Once he realized his team was rolling, they were able to find a way to win. And it was certainly dicey, and there were things that needed to go SMU's way, but I mean, everything in the first half did not go SMU's way. They were just flat, quite frankly. I thought everybody but Brashard Smith was flat on the team. And the defense again came out and started strong with 3 straight drives that forced a punt. But again, SMU is going to have to establish more consistency offensively. The discipline issues were kind of, pretty flagrant, I would say. Jordan Hudson with the slap at somebody, Brandon Crosley's alleged spit. And then you just had some face masks and hands to the face and false starts and other things that, maybe our first game, but I don't know. I don't know why this game was such a strange one for SMU to try and tackle. They had a plan overall with how they were going to play 2 quarterbacks and figure that out. And then, defensively, I mean, they didn't have to do anything crazy, I felt like. And everybody was wondering about the defensive line, but they got a good push. I felt like a lot of the issues with allowing even 148 yards. I mean, they allowed they allowed 3.7 yards per rush, but I felt like a lot of that was more almost on the edges, like Brendan Lewis getting out in space and then teeing up somebody and allowing his blocker to pin him, and then boom, hitting the hole. So I don't know. It's got to be a little bit of a wake up for everybody, and that includes Preston Stone, and he can't start like that against BYU, TCU, and those types of teams. And I said this in the preseason. This isn't a team that talent wise, for as far as expectations from the coaching staff and expectations from people outside the program or people who support the program, is going to be allowed to figure this out over the course of 6 games. There's pressure to win. There's an expectation to win, and they can absolutely get it done if they are the team that a lot of people think they are. Not just me. I mean, look at all the national media. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit calling SMU a sleeper team to win the ACC. I mean, all this preseason hype, and it was kind of taken today and thrown out the window. And maybe that's best for SMU. Not saying you want to go through something like this, but they can take it as a learning opportunity and maybe get better. But all right, let's run down the questions here and we'll get out of here. Troy Guggs, what's more worrying, offensive line or play calling? I would say, and then goes edit. Also, could be lack of production from wide receivers, excluding RJ. I would say the wide receivers were the worst part for me because you've got a group that we've done this for all offseason where there's an expectation for players to step up. And SMU didn't go out and grab somebody in the portal that could be a game changer, could be a difference maker, and they bet on their guys. But the guys they bet on tonight, by the way, shout out Matthew Hibner for his one catch for 19 yards, but he's going to be a real solid player for SMU as well. So stock up the tight ends room after this one. But look, Romello Brinson, 3 receptions, 17 yards, nothing really crazy there. Roger Daniels, 3 for 28. His long was 23. I believe they were all on the pop pass. I believe. So the kind of the jet fly thing. Keyshawn Smith, 1 catch, 20 yards. He was targeted 4 times. Jordan Hudson, 1 catch, 10 yards. He was targeted 3 times. Jordan Hudson can't have a game like that. And on top of that, he cost SMU. Well, actually, he didn't cost SMU 15 yards, if I remember. That was the offsetting play. But if he keeps his head a little bit more, they're able to move on. But the wide receivers have to step up. And I don't have the all 22 film, and I don't know right now what's going on there. But the corners showed at times that they're good enough to play with big mismatch receivers. And so it's not that Jordan Hudson is going up against, really average or mid corners in practice every day. And there's so much buzz about him from sources just around the team, but he can't go out there and have 1 catch for 10 yards. He's supposed to be one of your stars. So RJ Maryland emerged in the second half. That's a huge development. They've got to continue to find ways to get him the ball. But because he emerged in the second half, look, Jordan Hudson, Romello Brinson, guys like that got to be picking up the slack. And again, maybe it was play calling a little bit. Maybe I don't know. First game, the wide receivers have to elevate their play. They have to make more competitive plays on the ball, or else this is what it's going to be like all season. It's going to be Preston and RJ and Brashard Smith and some splash plays here and there. I'm not as much worried about the offensive line because they were able to get out of this game with a win, but they also have Andrew Chamblee at some point coming back. And then in terms of play calling, just a gut feel. All the things that SMU did for Preston after the East Carolina game last year, I felt like they did them again in the second half when he went out there. So I if they can figure out that nice little balance with letting Preston do his thing and keeping him out of maybe some RPO stuff, they'll be fine. Or they should be fine. Scale of 1 to 10, what was the lowest confidence you had in SMU winning the game and when? I was at a 2 when SMU missed the field goal. Also, what needs to change the most in the next week? I would say the missed field goal was right there. I would say it was pretty close to a 2 or 3. There's still enough time, but Nevada was also running the ball real well. What needs to change the most? I guess it would be a combination of coaching prep and mindset work with the team because they weren't ready to play. And they just thought they could, roll out there and throw the jersey on the field. Pony Snob, better chance of the team being 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, or 1-3 for the FSU game. I guess your best chance is probably 3-1 because 1, you get BYU at home, and the team I saw tonight can't beat TCU, I don't think. But if they improve and they figure out their mojo and things like that, they can. But the team I saw tonight can't. So I'm going to say 3-1. Pony Bait, they don't suck. I would say I don't think they suck. I don't want to make too much of a first game, but it was a really embarrassing look to be in that situation for so much of the game. Just the way it played out with discipline and all those things. Couchum, what was the point of putting Jennings in? I'm right there with you. Look, quarterback battle was real. I said that, and people didn't want to believe it, and then they put Jennings in and had a plan for him to play, and then they were going to take it from there. And Stone played the rest of the way. And I kind of said it to somebody today I was on the phone with. I said, watch this. They're going to go to Kevin, the third and fourth drive or whatever it is. And then Preston would then line up for him to kind of just get two more, maybe a third drive in the first half. So maybe Kevin plays that what would be the seventh drive of the or of the first half. And then they're going to go back to Preston. It's going to be a weird game or something, and then he's going to stay the entire game. And then you're going to be against Houston Christian and then BYU, and it's just kind of kicking the can down the road. I agree. I said it going into the second half, and I don't know if they listened to me. I don't think so, but I said pick a quarterback, stick with it, ride him out, and if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. I said that on the board going into the second half, and agree. He was objectively better than Stone before and after until Stone turned it on in the fourth quarter. So I agree. You might as well keep Kevin on the bench if you're not going to give him a true extended look, because then that's where you just get the true talking points of this or that. Like if if that's what it's going to be, and you're just going to get Kevin a little bit of time, it just doesn't make that much sense to me. Um, let's see. Troy Guggs, where can we find another RJ Maryland? Well, Adam Moore, actually, I didn't see much of him tonight, but he looks like physically he'll be one day really, really good. That's great. Ralph, should we widespread panic? No, not yet. But if they would have lost, I wouldn't have blamed you 1 second. Pony up, MRG. Only question: what do you think led to such a sloppy and uninspired performance, and how can it be corrected? Well, I think the correction part can happen mentally when something like this happens, and coaches need to continue to push, and players need to continue to push. But you can go through something like this, and if you are that good of a team, and I still think defensively SMU is a really good team, and I think offensively they have, like, look at Brashard Smith, the piece that he is. He's a game changer in the backfield that SMU hasn't had lately. So you have that piece. You have RJ Maryland. You have Preston Stone, who played well in the fourth quarter. You have wide receivers who could probably get it done. There, I mean, they should be able to kind of self-correct here a little bit. Like, look at that East Carolina game last year. It wasn't the first game. It was, 6 games, 5 or 6 games in, whatever it was. But man, that East Carolina team kicked SMU's butt. The offense was just able to make more plays than it did tonight until the fourth quarter. What led to it, though? Man, I think SMU was very, very confident and just arrogant, and maybe from the coaching side and the players side, and that's what happens. You get a guy like Jeff Chode who can motivate and who's won at Montana State and can really coach. Then that's what can happen. Troy Guggs getting his money's worth tonight. How much did we pay Brashard Smith? Because I don't think it was enough. I don't believe SMU really paid too much for him. He was actually one that Kyle Cooper, the special teams coordinator, had to kind of convince Rhett Lashley to bring on board, and Coop actually, landed him and then was like, "I'll take him in the running back room so that the slots will still be happy," because that's what Brashard had played at Miami, and he's explosive, he's dynamic, and he's your starting running back now. I think it's pretty clear. H-Town Pony, what was your take on how tight their DBs were able to stick on our wide receivers? Were the throws late or a lack of separation by the wide receivers? Kind of talked about this earlier, so I'll quickly kind of reiterate. I can't see the all 22, so I don't know if the throws are late. But whenever SMU throws a curl or a hitch or whatever you want to call it on the sideline to a Jordan Hudson or a Romello Brinson, it just never seems like it's on time and in rhythm. It always is contested. So I don't know. I really don't. And I still think SMU's got to find ways to work the middle of the field a little bit better. Troy Guggs. No, you're not asking too many questions. That's what this is for. Fountain Connoisseur, first game jitters, or do we suck? Does Stone staying in means he's a starter no matter what? I would say first game jitters, and I would patiently wait and see how BYU and TCU goes before assessing and saying whether or not SMU sucks. Yeah, that's about it. Does Stone staying in mean he's a starter no matter what? I would say Rhett Lashley's going to ride with him a long time, probably longer than I would have thought, given it is a competition. And I just think that if they ultimately have to make a change, it's going to be much later than it maybe needed to be. That's just my opinion now, after seeing how tonight played out versus projecting how it could play out. Whiskey Pony, is this fixable or is this what we're rolling with? The O-line in particular took me back to Chad Morris days. They got pushed around a lot. And I'm not disagreeing with you that the O-line did not play well. They did have a better rushing day, especially leaning on them a little bit in the fourth quarter than it, kind of looks like on paper. Um, like all things considered, right? Their total rush yards are impacted by 30 yards of the punt that went over the head of Isaac Pearson, the snap. There's kind of this random usage of Jalen Knighton and LJ Johnson, and then Kevin Jennings series where Kevin ran for a little. It wasn't a designed run, but it. I don't know. It just seems like there's random pockets of time where the run game was just kind of taken out of the offensive lineman's hand. But then you get into the pass protection, and Nevada didn't have a sack. I'm not sure how many pressures they had, but I guess penalties, add up on the offensive line. It's fixable. Andrew Chamblee is going to be back at some point. I think he's an athletic freak that can really help. So I I do think this team is fixable. And one thing I do think that Rhett Lashley's teams have done over the years is they've finished strong. So I'm not sure what we're in store for from weeks 2 to, I guess, 6, that 4-game stretch, but we'll learn a lot, and then we'll see where SMU goes down the stretch, obviously against a lesser competition on paper, at least as of now, but we'll see. Dark horse, does Crossley have to sit for a half next week? If he got ejected in the second half, which I think he did, he will have to sit. So that's why I think Rhett Lashley will go into the film and try to find it and see what happened. Dallas Mustang 11. Why was our O-line getting pushed around so easily? That was by far my biggest concern and takeaway from the game. I would say, I don't love it when SMU runs stretch plays or zone or whatever they call them. And and I know they're necessary evils, at least for this offense, but they were really good running the ball, I felt like, in between the tackles. I thought Brashard Smith's quick hitters were great. They ran Preston a couple times on some designed runs, and they're just going to be a work in progress, clearly, to figure out, what works, what doesn't for them, because they do have new pieces in all sorts of different places. So maybe it's communication, but we'll kind of see where the offensive line goes from there. Let's see. Huge fourth quarter from SMU and Stone. Was this a real SMU, or was the first 3 quarters who we'll see next week? I think SMU rolls next week. I know I thought they'd roll this weekend, but it is Houston Christian. No offense to them. Pony Sacks, am I taking anything away from this game to adjust the 9-3 season prediction? No, I'll do that after BYU though. I'll do that at the bye week. SMU giddy up. Any idea what goes in to the decision of giving Stone the rest of the game after Jennings led a TD drive in one of his 2 drives. I did listen to the first 3 minutes of Rhett's post-game press conference, and he said that Preston's a starter, and that was kind of, for the most part, what he said. He said a little bit more, but that was what I took away from it. What does Kevin Jennings need to do to get more burn? I completely agree. I mean, if you're going to rotate him and you're going to take some bad and some good, then you might as well stick with one, or you might as well rotate him, and then figure out what to do after these first 2 games. Like, this was, at least on paper going in, this was the game that they could play 2 quarterbacks, kind of rotate them, get them both a lot of time, and then know that next week is kind of a throwaway game, and then you can play BYU and go from there. But it didn't work out that way. Spaceballs, the SMU fan. When is Chambly possibly coming back? Is he practicing? Is he back to practicing soon? Yes, I think he is back to practicing. That's great, Ralph. What was Rhett yelling about on the sidelines toward the end of the game? I think guys were all chirping at each other on both sides. He and Jeff Choate looked like they were trying to shake hands, and then it looked like just guys were talking. So it's probably something about that, but I'm not sure. Whiskey Pony, our much vaunted defense gave up 24 points. Where did you see it went wrong the most wrong, or are we incapable of scheming around mobile QBs? I will say mobile QBs are not fun for Scott Simons as of the last 2 games for the most part. But I will say this. Nevada got gifted a touchdown, basically, inside the 10-yard line, and they were able to, score. So credit to them. They got on the board, 7 points. I mean, they gave up 7 points in the second half. I mean, I don't know. I don't. Football is still a really hard game to play, and I don't know what to tell you. I mean, under 300 yards, they gave up 4.2 yards per play, and I don't know. I mean, there were moments that it looked really bad. I mean, Brandon Crosley's spitting incident, whatever happened, leads to them going from getting off the field to giving up a touchdown. And that was their only touchdown given up that was their only points given up in the second half. So anytime your defense can play that well, where they only give up 7 points in the half, it's pretty good. And, I don't know. I'm not ready to write off this defense just yet, but mobile QBs are an issue. Couchum, why are we 3 years in and still having special teams disasters? Well, when you send one punt, a snap over, it certainly overshadows a lot of other things. But I mean, I thought they covered kicks well, unless I'm missing something. For kick returns, they had a 19-yarder and a 17-yarder, and the other kick return was dropped at the 1. And then punting, they didn't have any punt returns. They fair caught them all, I believe. Which, by the way, one of the bad decisions was Rhett calling that. I think he called timeout and then accepted a penalty, and then they ended up with worse field position, but it worked out because SMU was able to find RJ Maryland from Preston Stone. But no, I mean, honestly, look at the kick return game. The kick return, we haven't seen a kick return game like that from SMU in years now. I don't know if special teams is disastrous. I mean, kicker missed a 51-yarder after making a 52-yarder earlier in the game. I mean, misses happen. And a bad snap. I haven't seen Will Benton launch one over a punter's head, so that was a first and just kind of a sign of the times. But we'll see how special teams goes this year. Let's see. Why didn't our staff go after a transfer portal QB? If they believed in Jennings, who would have played more? I don't really know where this question is going, but I mean, they had 2 quarterbacks that they felt good about going into the season. And, they were high on him, and they didn't want to go out and spend on a transfer quarterback. So that's it. Yeah, I have no idea. How do the players come out of the game looking at the QB dynamics? Is there a risk the locker room fractures in how Lashley is handling Kevin and Preston? I mean, if it stretches into late in the middle of the season and it's bad quarterback play for Preston and Kevin plays well with his opportunities and then doesn't, get more, yeah, I mean that could fracture it, but we could play the ifs game on that all day. Um, but the reality is that Preston did get the ball in the second half when it was Kevin's turn to get it, I would say technically. But again, I didn't know their plan beyond the first four series of the drives. And Rhett stuck with them and they turned things around and they won the game. So I mean, he kind of made the right call. Puckhead, just a lot of work to do. How much of this was cockiness from players and coaches, and how much is just week 0? I thought it was just a little bit of a weird week, but I think a lot of it stems from cockiness. Yeah, a lot of these questions I've talked a lot about, guys. So it is midnight. I'm gonna check off all the rest of these questions, but you know, we'll see if this team becomes a little bit of a of a trend that they're going to play like this, which they're moving up in a weight class. They have to know that, and you hope that next week they would bring it a little bit more and not you know accept the type of effort that they gave. But I don't know. Rhett Lashley's teams have not shown up to be ones that get pushed around. They usually play with good effort. This was kind of a first. And anytime anything's going bad, people like to use the effort excuse and say, oh, they're not trying. You can tell, or this or that. And quite frankly, I mean it's just a bunch of crap. But tonight, the effort was not there, the discipline wasn't there, and the energy wasn't there either. And you could tell. So they've got to get that right. I think they will. I think they have enough veterans on this team to do that. And they also have some things to clean up as a team. So we'll see where it goes from here. But guys, thanks for listening. A nice 48-minute long episode to kick off the season of On the Pony Express's After Stangs Show. Check out moshield.com. Mosquito Shield, they can take care of everything for you with setting up your backyard in Dallas and other Texas locations with that mosquito defense shield that you need to enjoy your backyard in the fall. Use code PONYUP for a discount and to get their best pricing during the season. That's through November. So give them a call. Go to their website, moshield.com. We appreciate their support of the On the Podium Express podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this first edition of the After Stangs Show. We'll catch you next time with another show. Mustangs get back to work with their home opener against Houston Christian next weekend at Ford Stadium. We'll have all your coverage at ontheponyexpress.com. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys later.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.